Well, welcome back, folks. Today we're going to talk about hardware, mounting hardware, and specifically mounting hardware for the Honda SL125. What you see in front of you now in the shot is the engine mounting hardware in the lower part of the view, and then along the top here is the swingarm pivot. All of this hardware is original to the bike with the exception of these shorter. These are 70 millimeter engine mount bolts. I have actually ended up with 5 of them because I somehow or other ended up with extra plates. But you only need 3. You need 3, 2, 2, and then 1 of each of these. And I thought it might be helpful just to have a little discussion with folks about how I approach restoring or replacing with new or NOS hardware. And I think many of you know that I can zinc plate, nickel plate, as well as I have a parts polisher or tumbler, as well as wire brushes on wheels. So I have a lot of process capability in terms of restoration of hardware. But I tend to take the simple approach, and that is, if I can buy new or NOS hardware at a reasonable price, I will usually do so versus attempting to recondition or restore the original. But it depends. I've gone ahead and looked up the prices on this hardware, all of this hardware. I use Partzilla as a reference. And as of this date, and this is early to mid-autumn 2020, these 3 bolts are available. They're $2.12 US each. So you need 3 of them, so it'd be times 3. These are 90 millimeter, and these are not available from Honda. I'm sure you can probably find them on eBay, NOS. These fasteners, these are 111 millimeter, are available, still available, $2.30 each, so times 2, that's $4.60. So if you go out and buy these new and these new, you're talking over $10 new. Not a lot of money. The swingarm pivot is not available. Again, probably find it on eBay, certainly used. This bushing or spacer is not available. Again, eBay, I'm sure. And this locking nut is available from Honda at $4.81. In this case, what I will probably do is I will restore these pieces of hardware, the 70 and 90 millimeter, because they're in very good condition. There's a little bit of minor corrosion, but the plating is held up pretty well. So what I will do is I will probably wire wheel these and then throw them in my tumbler and polish them up and see what they look like. And then that would include the washers and nuts that go with them. It's really not a matter of trying to save money here. It's just a matter of there's really not much wrong with the originals. These I will restore simply because they're not available, and I know if I go out and buy them on eBay, that's probably going to cost me $5 a piece. These 2 I'm going to replace. And why am I going to replace them? Well, and they're still available, of course. This one's not in the best condition. If it wasn't available and I couldn't find one, it could be restored. You could strip the zinc off and replate it, and it would probably look just fine. This one is not an original bolt. This is a 5/16 Imperial, and it's got nylock nuts on both ends, which this one should look like. These are like this one. These are supposed to be identical, and they're not. So someone replaced this with this 5/16. And I'm going to restore this and this for sure. Only because, again, if I go out on eBay and even buy a used one, it's probably going to cost me, $10. I haven't looked. And that's not in the best of condition, but I think I can restore it okay by stripping it and replating it. Same here with this bushing or spacer. And this nut, well, since I'm doing these parts, I'll probably see about restoring that also. And if it doesn't come out to suit me, then I can always go buy a new one from Honda. So that's going to be my approach. Salvage, salvage, replace, attempt to salvage. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this swing arm pivot and I'm going to begin the restoration process. And what I'm going to do first is, well, first for your benefit, I'll wire wheel part of it so you can see what that'll look like after it's been wire wheeled. I'll probably end up blasting it, all of these pieces in the media cabinet, getting all the corrosion off of them. Then I will immerse them in a acid solution to strip the zinc. I don't care to work with acid much, and I try to avoid it, but I really do need to get the old zinc off of here and get it down to bare metal. Probably soak it for 24 hours at that point in evaporust or similar. Blast it once again, and then it'll go into zinc plating. But right now I'm going to go wire wheel part of this, and I'll show you what it looks like here in a second. Just completed wire wheeling the left portion here, right here. That's been done on a wire wheel. And then this section I decided to demonstrate what media blasting would look like. This is, by the way, glass beads, which is what I normally keep in my cabinet. I do have black, black diamond, I think they call it, which is a crushed coal slag, as well as a couple of other medias that I use, but generally I use or keep glass beads in the cabinet. Anyway, glass beads was here, wire wheel here, and you can see the difference in finish. Now, some folks may say, well, gee whiz, that piece right there, that section with the threads, that doesn't look too bad. Why not just go ahead and leave it the way it is? Well, the problem with that is the zinc plating, the protective coating, is pretty much gone. There might be remnants of zinc here. In fact, there probably is right there. I think that's some remnants of zinc. But appreciably, this is raw steel now. And the problem with that is it's going to rust. It's not going to hold up very well. Now, if this was just a rider, I was trying to get it back on the road just to ride around the yard or casual use, this would probably be fine for most people. But since this is a restoration, I want to return this to as good a condition as I can. And it's going to necessitate removing the remaining zinc with acid. And then we'll soak it, like I said, in evaporust, and then we'll move on to plating. The reason I will soak it in evaporust and then clean it thoroughly just before plating is I want to make sure after I use the acid, which is very aggressive and will clearly remove the remainder of the zinc and will start to etch the steel, it can flash rust really quickly after that. So I'm going to soak it in evaporust just to make sure I get down in all these pores and make sure all the rust is removed. Clean it good with acetone, and then it will go right into a zinc plating bath. I will do the same with these three parts. These parts here are going to be just tumbled and polished. Probably wire wheel them lightly first because I don't want to remove the finish. And then, of course, these will be replaced. So I'll bring you back a little bit later, and we'll see what this looks like after. It's actually several weeks later from when I shot the earlier parts of this video. And as you can see here, I've got the hardware, swing arm, and motor mount bolts about ready to go. The swing arm pivot, these are all original parts. If you recall, in the earlier part of this segment, or this video, this is pretty badly rusted, so I did give it the full treatment. And all these pieces are original and been replated and polished in a tumbler. And the same goes for most of the engine mount hardware. These are all original on the left. These are, remember I had 5 of those. I'm going to use 3 of them. These are original bolts, and they have been replated. I think you can probably see there. And then I changed my mind on this bolt, this longer of the 3. I originally indicated I was going to replace this bolt and buy 2 new ones. This is a new one. If you recall, this is a 5/16 bolt that was used, an Imperial SAE bolt. And I'm not obviously going to use that, but I thought I would try to restore this original bolt here, and it came out actually pretty good. This is a new bolt. This is still available from Honda. You can see the part number right there. Part of the time, the last couple of weeks, been rounding up the new hardware. So this is the new Honda bolt, and this is the original that was restored. And I think it came out looking pretty good, considering it was in very rough shape. So I'm going to go ahead and reuse this one. So I've got pretty much everything ready to go to put the engine back in the frame, along with remounting of the swing arm. The washers and nuts are original, as you can see. I also cleaned and polished those. Those were not replated. They were just cleaned because they're in very good condition. It really did not have any rust on them. They just needed to be polished. So I think all of this hardware is ready to go. I also rounded up some new nuts and washers to go with the engine plates. These are new fasteners from Honda. And here are the engine plates right here. Get these in the shot for you that have been painted. We talked about the painting in a previous video. So here's the engine plates that will be used with this hardware. Next step will be to see if we can't get the engine in the frame. I will show some of that. I'm not sure how much of that, but I will show you some of that progress of remounting the engine. I prefer to put my engines in the frames before I put the wheels on and get it up on its feet. I just find it's a little easier for me. But first I want to talk about the rear shock absorbers that will go. These are the original rear shocks that I pulled off the bike a few months ago when I broke it down. And as you can see, they're not in the best condition. Chrome has started to rust. And this plastic sleeve right here is in pretty poor condition. Could these be salvaged? Probably. I've never taken apart this particular shock before, but if I could get those shocks on the Yamaha YL1 apart, I'm sure I could get these apart as well. I had a mind to. These are not available from Honda anymore. And even though some of the individual components are listed on the parts diagrams and show them as being rebuildable, those parts aren't available either. I did go out and do some research on trying to find good, used, rebuildable shocks. Didn't have a lot of luck. Everything I found was in the same general condition as these, or worse, and I would still have to have the chrome redone, which is getting very expensive. Just doing, just doing these springs alone, I bet would be $75 to $100 US dollars just to get the springs re-chromed, let alone figure out what I do about the bodies here. So I took a different approach. When I say different approach, what I did is I went out, spent quite a bit of time researching OEM type or similar to OEM replacement shocks, and I did manage to find these shocks. These came from Thailand. In fact, I think they're made in Thailand. And they're very, very close to the originals. In fact, I would argue to the untrained eye and someone that really didn't know, they wouldn't be able to tell the difference. There are some subtleties, of course. One is that the spring, these springs, are reversed from the original. And that is, if you look at the coil on the original shock, the coils are a little bit closer here at the bottom than they are at the top. So these coils open up as you go from bottom to top. On the new shocks, it's just the opposite. You can see the coils are tighter here at the top than they are at the bottom. That's one obvious difference. Very subtle, but it is there. The other major difference, I think, is that the number of adjustments here that you can change the tension on your shock on the original is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think you can see that. And the new shocks are 5. I think you can see it there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, it's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Other than that, a few other minor differences. This cap is a little different here. Their length is virtually the same. The diameter is the same. I've measured it with a caliper. All the major dimensions are the same, and they're about as close, I think, as you're going to come in terms of appearance and functionality. These should be a direct bolt-on. I am going to attempt to replace these bushings, these rubber bushings here that came with the shock with Honda originals. I do have those. Actually, I ordered them and already have them because I think it might fit a little bit better, because you can see this eye here is a little bit smaller on the originals than on the new shocks. But by and large, for what these cost me, and I believe I paid around just over $100 with shipping to get them here from Thailand. It would probably cost me well over twice that much, probably almost 3 times that much, if I was to attempt to rechrome and rebuild a set of the originals. It probably cost me between $200 and $300 US, and I got the new ones for, I think, a little over $100 delivered, so it was a good buy. They do have this label on them, you can see here, that I'll probably attempt to get off. Might apply a little heat to it and see if I can get that label off. Obviously that's not original. So these shocks, along with the swing arm, are going to be now mounted on the bike, and again, I'll probably show bits and pieces of that. I'm not sure I'm going to show the entire thing, but you certainly will see it when it's complete and these shocks are installed. Well, I have one shock absorber, the bottom bushing and grommet changed out. And this is the new Honda part number. That's these parts right here. And these are the originals. And I think you can see there's a slight difference in size there. Not a lot. Probably didn't have to be done, to be honest about it. The original will probably work just fine, but they weren't very expensive, so I thought I'd change them out so I'd make sure they align and match up with the Honda supplied mounting hardware. That is the bolt that goes through and mounts to the swing arm. And this label here I removed from this one. Just used a hot air gun. Didn't overheat it because there is oil in here, of course, but I heated it up just enough that I can get my fingernail underneath this label and just peeled it off. The top here, I have a little problem, and that is the rubber bushing itself is back ordered from Honda. The inner bushing, the metal sleeve, is available. In fact, I already have those 2 new inner sleeves. But since that inner rubber bushing is back ordered, I'm going to go ahead and install these on the bike as they are, and if the bushing ever comes in, and who knows, being back ordered, I'll just swap them out at that point in time, sometime in the future. But I'm going to mount it the way they are with these supplied bushings that came with the shocks. So I'm going to go ahead now and swap this lower bushing on this side out on the lower end of the second shock. I just used a socket, as you can see here, in a mallet and just drove them out. They didn't come out very hard, and just pushed the new ones in with my thumb.